This is the most important artifact in the entire world. Without it, we would not know how to read any of these ancient texts. We'd have no idea what these guys were saying or writing about. And believe it or not, this is actually a relatively modern discovery. It was found only 200 years ago. But how does one rock monolith hold all of this knowledge? How can such a boring rock be so important? Well, it's because of what's written on it. This rock is called the Rosetta Stone. And before we dive into what's written on it, I want to tell you a little story. The year is 1799, and Napoleon Bonaparte and his army are in Egypt trying to take over the place. They had been fighting the Ottoman Empire there for quite some time, and they were getting tired. So they decided that they needed a nice base of operations, somewhere they could relax, somewhere where they could set up shop and call home while they took a break from destroying everything. So they took over the city of Rosetta and began making their home there. While the troops were busy plundering the town, an engineer by the name of Pierre-François Bouchard stumbled upon something strange while working on fortifications near the harbor. He noticed something sticking out of the ground. So he stopped his work and dug around it a little bit, and what he found was the largest piece of a broken obelisk that anyone had ever seen. It was made of a black granite and was covered in strange markings. He thought it might be worth something, so he sent word to Napoleon himself and waited for instructions. Napoleon wasn't really interested in history or artifacts. He just wanted to get back to France with as much money as possible. So he told Bouchard to have the obelisk shipped to Alexandria and then just leave it there. The obelisk was too large to fit on any ship, so instead they pulled it apart into smaller pieces and left them in storage in a building in Alexandria. That's right, they literally just sawed up this priceless artifact and threw the pieces away. If it weren't for the fact that another guy was there to collect it, it might have been lost forever. A British soldier happened to be passing by the warehouse where the pieces were being stored, and he noticed them. Now, he wasn't an archaeologist or a historian either, but he did recognize that these writings looked a bit different than other things he'd seen in the area. So he brought the pieces back to England with him when his tour of duty was over. At first, no one paid much attention to it. The British Museum didn't even want it because they didn't think it was that special. But soon enough, people began to realize that this was probably one of the most important artifacts ever discovered. But what makes it so important? What's so great about it? Well, here's the thing. For thousands of years, historians had very little access to primary sources from ancient cultures. We don't have many letters from Shakespeare, for example. There are no surviving copies of Plato's Republic, and we have almost nothing from ancient Egyptian civilization except for a few scraps of papyrus. All we have are a handful of these giant stone pillars that seem to go on forever, and there's thousands of them. All across Egypt, there are these obelisks and pillars with strange markings on them that we have no idea what they mean. And without any written records from the Egyptians themselves, we have no way of knowing what they wrote about, or even what their writing system looks like. Now, we have been able to make some educated guesses, mostly by looking at other ancient languages and seeing which symbols look similar to what other cultures were writing at the time. But this was hardly an exact science. We've managed to decipher a few dozen hieroglyphs, but it's impossible to know if we have them all or if we have the right idea of what they mean. We don't even know for sure what these things are supposed to be read as. Are they letters that make sounds? Are they logograms, whole words? Or are they ideograms, ideas, or concepts? We simply have no way of knowing until we find some sort of Rosetta Stone, some sort of key that unlocks this mystery. And now, standing in front of the British Museum, we finally have it. That's right. These pillars aren't just random collections of symbols. They are carefully crafted translations of the same text written in 3 different scripts. Here are the 3 scripts. This one is Demotic, a kind of Egyptian shorthand that was used by ordinary people. This one is hieroglyphic, the more formal script used by priests and rulers. And this one is Greek, and it's this last one that makes the Rosetta Stone so important. See, Greek was a common language throughout the Mediterranean at the time, and since Egypt had been occupied by Greece several times, most people in Egypt knew how to read and write in Greek. And when the British came across the stone, they just happened to know Greek, so they were able to translate the Greek text easily and figure out what it meant. But then they compared it to the other two versions and realized that they were all saying the same thing. And thus, by comparing the Greek version to the Egyptian versions, they were able to translate the Egyptian hieroglyphs. There's just one tiny problem, though. See, as you can imagine, once people realized just how important the Rosetta Stone was, they wanted to keep it safe. So they put it in a vault inside the British Museum, and unfortunately, the lighting in that vault isn't very good. So, over the years, the stone has become partially covered in mold, and that mold has obscured a few of the letters, particularly in the Demotic script, the shorthand that most regular people used. And because Demotic used a lot of loan words from Greek, a lot of those words have survived into modern English. In fact, the word Rosetta itself comes from this stone. It's a Demotic word for a little house. So the museum named the stone after itself. Unfortunately, the mold has obscured some of the letters in the Demotic text, which means that we still don't have every single hieroglyph translated. But we have come pretty close. And now that we have the Rosetta Stone, we have uncovered thousands of ancient Egyptian texts. And with each new text we find, we learn more and more about life in ancient Egypt. Thanks to this one weird stone, we can read their love poems, their religious hymns, their historical accounts, and we can see the lives of the greatest pharaohs from a whole new perspective. We have the Rosetta Stone to thank for the fact that we know anything about ancient Egypt today. And it's funny because it's such a boring rock. It doesn't look like much at all. It's kind of just a sad slab of granite with a few carved lines on it. But it's what's written on it that makes it so valuable. And speaking of valuable things written on rocks, I am going to end this video now. But if you want to keep learning about the ancient world, you can click here to watch more. I have videos on the parchment of Dead Sea Scrolls, the Moabite stone, and a whole playlist on ancient Rome. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.